Our input is now properly tracking our user's input. We can now set up an event handler on our form tag right here, and whenever a user submits our form, we will attempt to create a new campaign by using our factory contract. Again, this is the fun part. This is where we get to get back into the Ethereum world. So let's get started by first creating an event handler inside of our component right here. So I'm going to add on a new method, and I'm going to call it onSubmit. Now remember, usually we define methods with this method looking syntax right here, but if we use this syntax with an event handler, the value of this inside of that method will not be set correctly unless we do some function binding when we pass in the event handler to our form tag. That's just a long, complicated way of saying that we're going to use a slightly different syntax here, where we say onSubmit equals and then an arrow function like so. Let's make sure that we take this onSubmit handler and we pass it in to the form tag right here. So we want to watch for the onSubmit event. And whenever that occurs, we want to execute the function this.onSubmit. One thing to keep in mind is that we do not want to place parentheses on this because we're not trying to run this function right now. We want to pass a reference to onSubmit to this component so that it can be executed at some point in the future. So I'm not going to place any parentheses after it. All right, so now inside of the onSubmit handler, this is going to handle a form submittal. And remember, whenever we do a form submittal in the browser is going to attempt to automatically submit the form to our backend server. And that's definitely behavior that we do not want to have. So we're going to take the event object that our event handler right here is automatically called with, and we will call the event.preventDefault function on it. And that's going to keep the browser from attempting to submit the form. All right, so now that we're in this function body, we're now at the point in time where we want to attempt to actually create a new campaign. We can create a new campaign by importing our factory instance that we had defined inside of factory.js inside of our Ethereum directory. Remember that our campaign factory contract, and here it is on the screen, it has a create campaign function. We call create campaign with a minimum contribution, and that will automatically deploy our new campaign for us. But it will force our users to pay for that transaction, which is the exact behavior we want. So let's import this thing into our new.js file, and then we can use that factory instance to create our new campaign. So up at the top, it looks like I already have this line of code here. Let's just retype that really quick. So we're going to say import factory, and notice that we're using lowercase factory because this is an instance of a contract. And we're going to import that from // Ethereum factory, like so. So now we can make use of that inside the onSubmit handler. Remember, whenever we call a function on a contract, it's always going to be asynchronous in nature. So let's make sure that we annotate this arrow function as being an async function so we can use the await keyword. So now we can say await factory.methods.createCampaign. And we definitely want to pass in our minimum contribution to this function call. Our minimum contribution is available on this.state.minimumContribution. That's the text input that we've been tracking from our users. So we'll say this.state.minimumContribution, like so. This is turning into a really long line of code right here, so I am going to new line that create campaign statement. And then after it, we're going to chain on our .send. You'll recall that in all the tests we've ever written so far up to this point, we have always had to specify our gas value. However, when we're sending transactions from in the browser, we get to take advantage of a feature that is included with MetaMask. MetaMask is going to attempt to automatically calculate the amount of gas we need to run this function. So when we're calling this function right here in the browser, we don't have to specify a gas amount. That's something that we should only have to do when we're running tests on our own. However, we do have to specify the source account for sending this transaction in. So as usual, we will get a list of all of our accounts from Web3 and then use the first account inside that list to send the transaction in. that's going to require that we make use of Web3. So let's not forget to import Web3 into this file as well. Back up at the top, we're going to add on another import statement for Web3. And we're going to get that from, again, we're going up 2 directories. So .. Ethereum Web3, like so. Then back down inside of onSubmit, we can get a list of our accounts by saying const accounts is await web3.eth.get accounts. And then finally, whenever we call send, we'll say from accounts at 0. So we're just kind of assuming here that the user does in fact have at least one account that we can use to send in the transaction. All right, so let's flip over to the browser now, and we're going to test this out in the next video.